This is Mark DePew. I'm again with Matt Hughes. We're standing in front of a piece of machinery, a combine, and behind that, of course, is one of your soybean fields, filming for the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, part of our series on agriculture. Spent a lot of time this morning talking to you about a lot of the different aspects, but now it's the important part, the part you wait for all year in the harvesting. But I want to start with you telling us a little bit about the piece of equipment that we've got behind us here.
Sure, yeah. This is our combine, and of course we use this for both corn and soybeans. We put different heads on it, and what you see right now is you got the combine in the back's the big machine there, and then on front of it we have what we call a platform, and we use that to cut soybeans, and it's got a sickle at the bottom that cuts the entire plant off, and the reel pulls it in and takes it through the combine. And then what it does is it threshes the soybean seeds out of the pods, puts them in a tank, and spits everything else, chops it up behind the machine.
Well, a question that the folks from the city always have to ask, how much did this cost you?
You're looking at a pretty nice house right there. maybe a couple houses, depending on where you live. But the machine itself this is a medium-sized combine. They make 2 or 3 larger than this, and they make one smaller or a couple smaller. But the combine itself, just this, what we call the separator, is about $250,000, and then the head has to be bought separately, and that's about another $45,000.
So this head for soybeans is $45,000.
Just the head, yeah.
And you have a head for corn as well, do you?
Right. And then we'd have another head that we put on here. It looks a little different to pick corn, and that would be another $45,000 basically.
So we've got the combine and 2 heads. We're well over $300,000.
Yeah, $350,000. Yeah, about $350,000 is kind of with taxes and everything.
Well, let's talk a little bit about tax policy and depreciation and things like that. How quickly can you depreciate this piece of equipment?
Not to get too specific, because taxes aren't my forte, but I know what I have to pay. We can depending on what other equipment we buy during the year, we can do an accelerated depreciation on some of this. So we can take upwards of $100,000 right off the top as part of an accelerated depreciation schedule. But otherwise, we would set this up basically as a 5-year property and depreciate that on a 5-year schedule.
Is that how often you end up trading out combines? Is every 5 years?
Typically 3 to 5 years is what we'd hope to keep a combine. We'll do that for varying reasons. If we need a larger one, we might do it quicker. If this combine would develop a problem with it, we might do it quicker. If it continues and does it trouble-free, and we might keep it longer. But we generally like to keep them about 3 years.
Are you always purchasing brand new combines then?
Generally, our practice has been to buy new or 1-year-old machines. We look for the best value and try to figure out which one's going to make us most money in the long run. We try to stay away from machines that are used real extensively, because we don't have the mechanical abilities to maintain them in our own shop. A lot of farmers have that experience, and they'll have that around and take advantage of that opportunity. But for us, we tend to operate a little bit newer equipment, and also at the same time be able to take advantage of some of the newer technologies that way.
What would be the typical life expectancy of a combine like this?
A combine like that, if you take good care of it, it could last well beyond 10 years. And there's combines out here that have been running 25, 30 years. Okay. It's all a matter of how much money you want to put in repairs and keep them running.
Well, the next question then deals with financing, and with things going like they are right now, with the economy in a crunch, with Congress just passing a $700 billion bailout package and credit being very tight. Tell us a little bit about what it takes to do that.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of capital investment. Like you said, this is one piece of equipment that's well over $250,000 right there, and we have another piece of equipment that has to run alongside of it. It's another couple $100,000, and we have other things around here, and then we get to the planning side. So yes, we're talking about a lot of capital, and we do have needs for financing, and we usually work with local banks, and we have farm credit available too as needed, but things like that for agriculture. But Credit for agriculture has been surprisingly forthcoming, and really in general, business credit's not hard to come by. As long as you have a sound business plan and a track record, you can get credit, and that's important. You know, and that's what we have. We have a solid operation, and we've demonstrated we can earn income and repay our debts, and so it's not hard to come. But we still end up paying, you know, having debt, paying interest on that debt, and still have to prove our financial condition with our lender every year, and we work closely with him, make sure we're all on the same page there.
Okay, let's ride.
Great.
And Mark.
Matt, it's when we get up to the cab that you realize just how much technology has revolutionized your business. Tell us a little bit about what you've got in the cab.
Well, basically a lot of monitors to help us know what's going on with the combine, know what's going on with the crop out here, and collect data so we can take it back to the office and analyze it later. I guess the first thing everybody catches their attention is our yield monitor. It gives us on-the-go picture of what's being harvested out there and what it looks like and how it's yielding. It's also recording that data, and it's tied into GPS, so we know exactly where all the yield is coming from on that field, and that's something we'll take back to the office this winter and evaluate our fields and look for problems in specific areas and try to make decisions for the future. Right below that is our navigation system. It's our source of GPS, but it also helps us take some fatigue off for fatigue purposes and also for productivity, but it's basically tied into a system that basically steers the combine when we're in soybeans. When we get going here, it helps us keep the head a little bit more efficient, and also takes a lot of fatigue. You know, as you'll see, it gets very dusty. It's kind of hard to see out here sometimes. Can kind of help avoid some problems in that area, and also, you know, we're in this thing long hours during the day, and anything we can do to.
The computer is steering more than you are?
Well, basically, when we're going straight to the field, there's a lot to watch here, and that's one less thing we have to worry about. So, yeah, this computer's steering, and we're watching other functions and making sure the head's feeding right and doing some other things, and you know what that entails. Down here is the monitor for the combine itself, and there again I can monitor. It tells me if I've got any excessive losses going out, or any losses that aren't being properly separated by the combine. Tells me how different functions on the combine are operating and my settings, and I can make a lot of adjustments on the go right here. I can change it. Just about any feature on this combine can be done from setting right here, and I don't have to get out, and I can get them fine-tuned as I'm going through the field. And that's very important to us. This field we're going to harvest is being grown for seed, so quality is very important to us. So we can watch our tank back here and look for splits and things like that, but we can make adjustments to make sure that we're getting high quality seed in our tank and getting that job done. And then the only other little piece of equipment is our radio back here. We have an auger wagon that will catch on the go here, and so that's so we can communicate and let everybody know what's going on. So
heated, air conditioned, all the comforts at home?
Oh yeah, the main thing is it's airtight. We keep the dust out as much as we can. It still gets in, but and then we're talking about a lot of window space. So yeah, air conditioning is a must. And
how about, I would assume you can also monitor exactly how full you are and when you need to unload?
Yeah, absolutely. There's we have sensors in the tank that let us know when we get to 70% full, and then it lets us know when we are full, and that helps us. And we can also see through the window how things are progressing there until it covers up the window. But yeah.
Are you able to determine things like moisture content?
Yeah, that gets back to the yield monitor. The yield monitor is collecting not only estimating the weight, but it's also collecting the moisture. It runs through a moisture sensor, so we know basically exactly how much it's yielding at this given moment and what the moisture is in that area and how crops are going.
And how long would you be operating in a typical day in the harvest season?
Well, soybeans is a little bit of an abbreviated harvest day usually because we're very weather dependent. The crop has to be dry. Like if this was a drizzly day or even a foggy overcast day, it would delay our harvest start. A day like today where it's very windy and the sun's been out all day, we can basically get started about 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning sometimes. Sometimes it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon before we get started. And then the same thing happens at night. If we have a fog set in, or the dew starts setting in at night, it'll shut us down after dark. So, typically 7, maybe 8 o'clock at night, starting to be about as long as we can run. But then you get a nice night when the when the wind's blowing and the humidity is low. We might run till midnight. But soybeans are very difficult. It's a lot different than running corn.
Okay. I think we're ready to see you harvest.
Great.
Okay, we're watching just the beginning of this particular row. You've already made a pass on the other side. Explain to us what we're looking at here.
We're just starting on this field. We took the ends off that end, and now we're starting up the side here, starting cutting our soybeans. Basically, right in front of you, we've got a 35-foot platform, so we're usually harvesting about 4.5 miles an hour when things are going right. So we're usually cutting about 15 to 20 acres an hour. And
how large is this field?
This field you're looking at is 80 acres of soybeans.
And how long is this particular pass?
This is about a half mile long. So it's about a half mile long and about a quarter mile wide.
Matt, I wanted you to tell us a little bit about how many times you're getting into the field here. When you plant in the spring, how many times you come in each year?
We basically will start, actually the season starts right after we get done harvesting. We'll come in and fertilize for the next year's crop. And so we'll put some fertilizer down, and then next year...
Do you disc this as well on the
No, no, we wouldn't do any tillage on this in the fall at all. And we're a no-till operation anyway, but we probably would really touch this too much. But all we're going to do is just spread fertilizer on top of the ground, and it'll lay there for next year's crop that way.
As I'm looking right down this row, I'm looking at corn stalks. I would assume corn stalks from last year's crop.
Absolutely. This was a cornfield last year. We picked the corn, came in right after it was, like in November last year, and they spread fertilizer on this, and it set over the winter. And then the following spring we came in, and our first trip would have been with the sprayer to kill the weeds that had grown up over the winter. And then we came in and planted it right into the standing corn stalks, just like it looked over there. And then the beans would have grown up, got about 6 inches tall, and we would have came in and sprayed them again for weeds. And then they would have continued growing, and probably in about the end of July, early August, we'd come in and possibly have to treat for insects or some fungus, and then and now we're into harvest. It's soybeans are a pretty simple crop, but just got to do things at certain times.
Simple as in it doesn't take as much loving care as corn?
Well, a few less steps and a few less. It still takes a lot of management and knowing what to do at the right time, but there's still a pretty forgiving crop, and there's a lot of things you can do to make a difference, and there's a lot of things you can do to a bean crop that'll make up for your mistakes when you do make a mistake.
Okay. Well, one of the things I'm fascinated by is watching the yield go up and down over here on your monitor.
Yeah.
65, 66. So you can determine any particular point in the field exactly what your yield is?
Absolutely. Like I said, we kind of watch that, and we'll kind of learn and see trends as we're harvesting, and that'll kind of stick in our mind. But I really don't start to use that until maybe this winter. I'll take it into the office and really look at it. But
in other words, you can get a readout of exactly what happened?
Yeah, all this information is being stored on a card, a computer card, and then I take that back to the office, download it to my desktop computer, and I have software back there that will help me analyze it.
I notice there's also a few weeds in here, as much as you'd like to hope that there's none.
There's actually nothing. Those are immature soybeans that have just kind of propped up over the years, but very little weeds out here.
I have seen plenty of soybean fields, though, where you see corn stalks that are sticking way up. Does that cause a problem when you come to combine it?
The corn stalks?
Yeah.
They can interfere with the cutting action a little bit, but for the most part, You can see we're kind of harvesting with them. Some guys like to go across them, but we found as long as we go with the rows, they just fall over and really don't cause any trouble that way.
I would think in the case of corn, you have no choice but to go with the rows.
Yeah, corn is a whole different head too. With the bean crop, you see, we're cutting it off right at the ground. We're taking the entire plant through the machine. With the corn plant, we're just taking the individual rows and stripping the ear off of it. The only thing we take through the combine with the corn is the ear itself.
Okay. What would you consider a good yield for this ground?
We always hope for 60 bushel beans is kind of our, would be a good average crop for us. Probably a long-term average on this farm would be about 57 bushel.
Well, so far in this row at least, we've been operating between 60 and 65. Okay, saying that, it just popped down to 54, 53.
Yeah, well, and that's what you'll have. You'll have some areas out here that'll be really good, and then you'll have some draws that'll bring it down. Keep in mind, too, that's kind of an instantaneous look. When we get to the end here, we'll see what the real average is, but that's just that's a 3-second look at what the yield is right now.
The other thing that really surprises me is on the opposite side of that head is a cornfield, and there's not a foot of space between the two.
Well, there's 15 inches precisely.
To be exact.
Again, when we plant this, well, even without technology, we're going to plant right up. We don't want to leave a gap, but not that we're. It sounds a little greedy, and it's not. If we were to leave too much of a gap out there, all we're going to have is weeds growing. So we do try to make an effort to make sure there's some kind of growing crop there, okay, to control the weeds there.
Now here's another aspect. Out in front of us here is Connie with the auger wagon.
Yep, she's waiting for me. For two reasons. In a field this long and beans this good, we probably about all we could do to make one round. So she's out there to try to. She's going to be. That helps us keep moving without having to run to the end all the time. And the other thing is to keep the combine moving because it takes time to set and dump. So we're going to dump without even stopping here, other than we're going to have to turn around.
Okay. I know one of the things that we had talked about previously, not today, but you also have a semi that you keep and use that for transporting your grain to market, but also to once you got the auger wagon full. Is that correct?
Exactly. Every farm and every field's a little different arrangement, and we do things a little differently. But this particular field is for seed, and it's going to go in a bin that sits right here in the field, right on the other side of the drive. And so all we have to do is we're just going to pick it up with the auger wagon and drive it over and dump it right in, and the wagon is just going to sit there and then auger it into the bin. Some other farms will have to haul it a distance, and then we'll start using trucks, or if we have to haul it to an elevator for some reason, that's where we'll use our semi to get it to the elevator or to another bin site.
How many bushels can you store on your farm, on your property?
We can hold most of our bean crop, which is about roughly 60,000 bushel, and then about half of our corn crop, which is about 200,000 bushel, I guess.
In terms of acreage, then, how much do you have how much of that 22,000 acres, 2,200 acres do you have in soybeans versus corn?
This year we're pretty close to 50-50, 55% corn and 45% beans. So we're about 1,150 acres of corn and 10,050 acres of beans, or excuse me, 1,050 acres of beans.
We're about ready, I think, to actually observe the auger in action here. Not too far away from that. What's the capacity that this combine can hold?
This combine can hold about 280 bushels. And that auger wagon over there can hold about 1,100 bushels. So that auger wagon can hold a semi-load, and this combine, it takes about 5 tank loads to fill that auger wagon. We just filled up, and the tank was completely full, and now I'm going to empty it out.
It is impressive to see it from this side of the operation, and you realize just how bountiful this land is. Are you going to have to dry this particular soybean patch field?
Dry it?
Is that the moisture content it needs to be?
Yeah, these beans are right now are right at 13%, and that's perfect. That's exactly where we want them. If they were a little wetter than that, beans. We'll start cutting beans when they're about maybe 14.5% moisture, and put them in a bin and run just a little bit of air through them. It doesn't take much to dry a beans, but once they're down to 13%, they'll no problem at all, and they'll be fine. It's a little different than corn there again too.
How long would you be able to store soybeans once they're at the right condition?
Once soybeans are dry and in a bin, I've seen people keep them for 3 years if they need to. Typically, these are all being grown for seed, so they'll be hauled out this winter and taken to the plant and put in a bag, sold to other farmers. But other beans we would typically sell all our beans sometime during the next year, because we have cash flow demands, and that's the purpose we grow them for.
We had talked about this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to go back to it. You say these beans are being grown for seed. Can you explain exactly what you mean by that?
Well, we try to add a little value everywhere we grow beans, and one of our added values is growing seed for a company like Pioneer or Monsanto. And so basically they give us parent seed to plant and take care of for them, and we grow it, and then in turn they come pick it up and take it to a plant, and then they'll bag it and sell it to other farmers to plant for commercial soybean production next year.
Okay. I know that you do a little bit of genetic modification. Can you talk about the implications of that?
Well, these are Roundup Ready soybeans. So yes, they are genetically modified. They've been pretty much accepted throughout the world, and so they
modified to be pest resistant.
Modified to be resistant to herbicide, specifically the Roundup herbicide.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons you see it so clean out here, because Roundup's pretty much a very effective broad spectrum herbicide that will keep all the weed pressure down that way, and versus some of our older technology, which is more specific and has developed a lot of resistance problems too over the years.
And there's no problems in marketing that?
When it was first introduced, there was some issues, but through the years, Roundup technology has been on the market now for 20 years. I'm losing track of my days here, but and it's been accepted now, and it's been proven, and so there's not been too big of an issue. Now, we also do grow some non-GMO soybeans that on some other farms, also looking for a premium there. And there's a market there where if we can keep them pure and keep the Roundup out of them, they're actually giving us a premium for those.
What's the reason for that?
Well, there's a few buyers out there that still prefer non-GMO soybeans. A lot of it, like Europe and Japan, have markets that prefer those for those, or for some infant diets and things like that, for infant soy milk, and they kind of, it's a marketing issue, but people are willing to pay a premium for it, and it takes us a little extra work, and it's a little harder to grow.
Yeah, how do you avoid contamination, if you will, if that's the right term?
Well, it's the same. We have the same issues growing Roundup seed. When we grow this seed, it has to be pure. We can't contaminate it with other varieties. So we take time and effort. It takes a couple hours between varieties. We have to take the machine apart to some extent. We have different doors that come off, and then we use a lot of air, blow the seed away, blow it out, run the combine a lot, and blow the tanks out. And then when we start a field, we'll actually purge, run some crop through it, auger that out, and keep that separate. And then before we actually start our actual saving what we're going to put in the bin.
Okay. Well, it looks like we're about at the end of this pass, and that should be enough film for us, and then we can talk a little bit about your auger wagon as well. Anything else you'd like to add while we're finishing up?
Nope. As you can see, that's what we'll do next. She stopped and waited. We'll make a round, and she'll catch us on the next pass.
Okay. It's all very much a team operation, isn't it?
It takes anymore, especially with it takes at least two people. You got to have somebody to harvest it and somebody to haul it away. We get in the corn, the bushels. You know, the soybean crop only making 60 bushels. We are covering a bigger swath, but with corn, you're talking about a crop that's making 200 bushel an acre. It comes in a lot faster, and it takes more people to haul that away. Soybeans we can get by with two people, sometimes three if we have to haul it very far. Corn we'll need at least another additional person on top of that.
Well, thank you for the education, Matt. And I think we got just a few more minutes with you, but it's been fun to ride along with an expert, somebody who's at the pinnacle of your field, if you will.
Oh, wow. That's pretty corny.
I'm sorry. It's probably going to be hard to live down when other people see this, too.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Matt, could you tell us about the equipment behind you here?
Well, this is our auger wagon and our tractor. The tractor in front we use for just about every field operation. The auger wagon specifically for harvest time, basically. But basically, this is our tool. It's probably just about almost as important as that combine, because if that combine's sitting still, we're not getting anything done, and it costs a lot of money to have it sitting still. So this helps it keep it moving and accumulates the grain in a large enough quantity to bring it out to the road and fill a truck or whatever we're hauling away with at the time.
Does the depreciation cycle on this work the same way?
Yeah. Basically, most of our equipment's on that 5-year depreciation. This cart you're looking at right here, again, it's one of the larger carts on the market. It holds just a little bit over a semi-load, and it costs brand new about $40,000 with the way it's set up there. And then you have to put a tractor on front of that, and again, that's kind of our main tractor. We use it for planting and all the field operations in between through harvest. And there's about $200,000 sitting in the tractor there alone. So.
Well, all of this adds up very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, you know, $250,000 here and $250,000 there. Yeah.
And maintenance isn't cheap either, is it?
No.
So tell us a little bit about the cost production side of this. What does it take to actually make a profit doing it?
Yeah. Well, you know, especially here of late, everybody's seeing the prices go up on the grain side, and certainly what we've been selling has become a lot more valuable. And unfortunately, when we make more money on that side, then it makes more demand for the products it takes to make that higher. So, you know, that means our fertilizer costs went up, our seed costs went up, and everything along with it. So our profit margin really didn't change too much. You know, we had a short windfall in there where we make a little bit more than usual, but we still are hopeful to, in order to cover our family living needs and our other overhead costs and things like, we need to be making at a minimum $50 an acre net, but our goal is always about $100 to $150 net, and that gives us enough to cover, you know, after we paid all our input costs, that's our net to cover the rest of our overhead and family living expenses and make it, you know, to put our kids through college and things like that.
When gas went to $4 a gallon, and I assume most of this is running off of diesel, which is even more expensive right now.
Yeah.
It's come down a little bit from that, but
yep.
Did that really put you in a squeeze?
Oh yes, well, all of our inputs. You know, we talk about our major inputs are basically seed, which comes, you know, when you're buying seed that was produced from high-priced seed, you know, that means that price went up. Then fertilizers are all derived from petroleum, and those prices went up. They've quadrupled in the last 5 years. And then you have chemicals, which are derived from petroleum products. They've doubled in the last few years. And then finally you got fuel costs, and they've skyrocketed, like you said. So yeah, when you add it all up, we've went from a crop. Soybeans is a little lower input crop. When we talk about corn, we have more inputs. We use more nitrogen, the seed costs are more, fertility's more and such. Those costs have really escalated. Soybeans are a little less intensive, but even so, their costs have doubled. We went from a crop that used to cost us inputs, the basic inputs, used to cost us maybe $50 to $75 an acre. Now we're up closer to $150, $200 an acre, and for a crop that's worth more now. But same token, that's what's happened. It's worth more, and it's costing us more to raise. Then you got to take the overhead costs out of all that. All this equipment to cover all that, and the depreciation side, all the other utilities we have to run besides the field operations.
One advantage of being a tenant instead of an owner, though, is you don't have to pay the taxes on the land.
Well, that's true. I don't pay taxes on the land, but I pay taxes on my income. I pay taxes on some of the permanent. I own some dryers and things on there, so that adds to cost. I have to pay actually, in some cases, even with our crop share agreements, we pay privilege rents to help the tenant, to help the landlord offset some of those taxes too. So we're still sharing in some of that in one form or another.
What's this land being taxed at per acre?
Oh, we're about, I'm going to talk a little out of school because I'm not real up on it. I think we're around $25 an acre for most of the agricultural land around here, ballpark.
Well, in the background, we're watching Connie turn the combine around, I would guess, to make another pass.
Yeah, she's going to take the ends off the other.
Okay, taking the ends off.
Yeah.
When we were out there, you couldn't help but notice it's a little bit dusty.
A little bit.
Being in the cab, but I would assume back in the olden days, they didn't have that advantage.
No, some of this way back in probably my great-grandfather's day, it was all hand harvested. They would go out here and cut it by hand. Well, soybeans really weren't even introduced into this country back when my great-grandfather was around, so they didn't have to deal with the soybean crop. But soybeans are definitely a much more dirty, dusty crop to harvest than corn. But when they first started harvesting soybeans, it was all done with either pull-behind combines that were pulled behind an open cab tractor, or the first combines were open stations, didn't have a cab or windshield or nothing, and they were out right there in the dust. And so yeah, that's definitely a much better arrangement we have today.
A lot healthier being in that cab.
Yes, yeah. At the same token, my grandfather, he was harvesting maybe 100 acres of soybeans, and he would do that for a few days, and that was it. But we're harvesting 10, 20 times what he harvested, and we're doing it for longer hours now. But the reason we can do that is because of the work environment we've created there, and you just can't, that dust, we couldn't, a lot of the older generations developed a lot of health problems because of that, and so that we can't survive like that either.
Well, you talked about the older generations. Let's talk about the next generation. Give you the opportunity to pass on some wisdom to somebody who might be considering to do the same kind of thing.
Well, who knows what this farming will look like. I talked about, going from open station to a cab. I imagine the next combine won't have a cab because there won't be anybody sitting in it, I'm sure. The next generation is probably going to be farming from my office up there, and that's going to bring a whole new dynamic to it. But that could open the world for anybody that wants to farm. But farming has always been a great lifestyle, and it's always been a great way to live. But it's a business, and you have to know how to run a business to make it profitable and to feed your family is what it boils down to. So it's not something you should just enter into lightly, but if you've got the right skill set, it's like any other occupation. It can be right for you.
Are you optimistic about the future for farming in Illinois?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic about farming. It's the one industry, it was the lifeblood of this country. It's what made this country what it is, and it's the one thing we can never get rid of entirely. It's changed dramatically over the years, but I think it's always, it's always been said that the economy goes the way of agriculture. When agriculture is good, the economy will follow and everybody will come along, and that's true. And when times are tough, agriculture is usually a good place to be, and when times are good, agriculture usually is always there too. So there's always good and bad, and you kind of weather through it, but you always end up in a pretty good position. It's a good lifestyle, but it's not for everybody, and it's not something. It's something that's becoming more about financing and money than it ever was before, but it still gets down to, you're working with plants and growing them in the soil.
So it takes somebody who's got a degree in ag economics and all of the technology and knows a lot about the machinery and knows a lot about some of the classic subjects of agriculture to make it all work.
Oh, absolutely. Getting back to, I talked about when I started working in marketing research, One of the things we could quickly figure out in market research is you can teach people statistics. It's not easy, but you can teach them statistics, but there's something about growing up on a farm, it's hard to instill what that's actually all about. And the same thing about agriculture here. There's a lot of things you can learn in a book, but until you actually experience it, there's things you just can't know any other way than to do it firsthand. But you know, learning your economics and learning management skills and things like that, that's what's invaluable in college, and then the rest of it's just on-the-job learning. And
okay. Yeah. It's been a real privilege and a pleasure for me to be out here with you today and to talk about agriculture firsthand with somebody who's been doing it for your entire life. So thank you very much, Matt.
Oh, thank you.